In the first video of this series on the quantum currency matrix, we took a look at some of the underlying methodology and some of the principles which we've used in order to develop this particular instrument. And in the remaining videos, we're going to look at an array of applications from the simple to the slightly more complex, and really how to maximize what this instrument is revealing in terms of the currency flows across the market. Remember that with the currency strength indicator, we're looking at individual currency strength and weakness, and with the currency matrix, we're looking at the global view of that currency strength and weakness reflected across the related pairs. Now, this profile really represents what the currency matrix is all about. In the top left, we have the currency matrix itself in the top left window. This is the leaderboard of bullish sentiment and bearish sentiment, and we'll come back to that in a moment. And then in the remaining 7 windows, we have a euro workspace. And these are the 7 currency pairs for the euro on a 5-minute time frame. Along the top from left to right, we have the euro New Zealand, we have the euro yen, and we have the euro Swiss. And then at the bottom, we have the euro dollar, bottom left, the euro CAD, the euro pound, and the euro Aussie, bottom right. And you can think of the currency matrix as replacing all these windows in the one instrument, which is indeed what it does. Now, you can also imagine that having multiple time frames set up in a manual way, is very time consuming and tedious to create, but perhaps far more importantly, it's very difficult to move around these profiles quickly. And this is one of the huge benefits of having the currency matrix. As you'll see in a moment, we can flick around the time frames and it will reveal strength and weakness across the market instantly. So let's take a closer look at the currency matrix itself, which is in the top left window. And several things to notice first. And you can think of it as a golf leaderboard, which is the closest analogy. In a golfing championship, all the players, depending on their scores, will move up and down the leaderboard. And this, in a sense, is precisely what is happening on the currency matrix. It's a ranking. It's a leaderboard of which of those currencies are bullish, which of them are bearish, and in addition to that, obviously whether they are moving higher or lower within that particular time frame. And finally, it will also tell you which of those currencies are the most strongly bullish and which are the most strongly bearish. So it's a complete ranking of the 28 currency pairs from bearish right the way through to bullish. And as you can see, once they move from bearish, from a negative number, in other words, into a positive number, they move from the red column to the blue column, which is constantly changing, reflecting the endless movement, the endless currency flows and changes in sentiment from bearish to bullish and back again. Now, just another couple of other points to note. At the bottom here, you'll see we have our 8 currencies, all color-coded, which also reflect the same colors as on the currency strength indicator. And whilst the indicator in this format shows you all 28 pairs simultaneously, you can then begin to isolate out the currency that you would like to consider in more detail. So let's start with that in this example. Here we're on the euro workspace. So we want to isolate the euro and see what's going on in this particular time frame. So let's click on this, and it's a simple toggle on and off button, So if we click on the euro, now we see all our euro pairs identified separately within the 28 pair ladder. And the first thing we're going to look at is the unanimous aspect of currency flows. In other words, is the flow for the euro unanimous in this time frame? What is the opinion? Is the euro being bought universally or sold universally across this particular time frame? And as you can see here, and certainly looking across to the charts alongside, it's an interesting situation and really does highlight one of the really basic uses of the currency matrix to help you identify risk. If you're looking at a currency pair in isolation and not aware of whether that particular currency is being bought or sold universally, you are taking on a huge amount of risk, because if the flows are universal, the risk on the trade will be much lower. If you are trading against the flow, if you like, it may well be a short-term trading position that is ultimately positive, but certainly the risk on the trade is much higher because you are trading against the global flow at that particular point. And the euro example here is actually a nice one. You can see on the left of the leaderboard we currently have 4 of our pairs which are actually euro positive: the euro Aussie, the euro New Zealand, the euro yen and the euro CAD. So we've got a degree of buying of the euro against those pairs. Now conversely, over on the other side, you can see that we have selling of the euro against the Swiss franc, against the British pound, and perhaps most importantly of all, against the dollar. Now, what's interesting here is if you were trading the euro dollar in isolation, you may well not be aware of the euro positive sentiment in the other pairs. That's not to say it's not a good trade to take. It's just simply highlighting the fact, and indeed you can see it on the charts themselves. If you look along the top 3 windows there, you can see the euro New Zealand is moving higher. Euro yen has topped out a little bit, and the euro Swiss is now moving into a congestion phase. At the bottom there, bottom left, you can see the bearish sentiment for the euro, very positive dollar. And then moving to the other charts alongside, you've had some buying in the euro CAD. The euro pound, again, a little bit of buying, but that seems to be waning somewhat. But look at the euro Aussie. The euro Aussie is strongly positive. So the euro Aussie, if you like, on the right hand side is very euro positive, and it's counterbalanced on the left hand side in the bottom left hand corner there with the euro dollar, which is euro negative. So we've got a complete divergence there between the euro Aussie, which is high up the ladder, and the euro dollar, which is moving deeper down the ladder, very negative. Bear in mind this is purely on a 5-minute chart. So on this time frame, we have a complete divergence of opinion towards the euro. Against the dollar, it's very negative, very bearish, but against the Aussie dollar, it's very bullish and positive. And in some of the other pairs, we have congestion phases. And this is one of the classical ways of using the currency matrix. This is what it's telling you. For that particular pair, if you're a euro dollar trader, it's telling you loud and clear that we have some euro positive sentiment for the Aussie particularly. That's not to say that taking a trade on the euro dollar is a bad idea. It's just telling you that perhaps the sentiment for the euro is really being driven by US dollar strength in this particular time frame. And for other pairs, there are other drivers which are working in the opposite direction. Now over time, of course, the euro Aussie may reverse and join the others. and that will then be reflected on the ladder itself. And that's another reason and another way of applying this, which we'll look at in a later video, which is using the currency matrix in multiple time frames. So that's one side of the equation, if you like, the euro side of the equation. And I've allowed this to run on a little bit on the 5-minute time frame. Now let's take a look at the other side of the equation, if you like, to give us a sense of what is going on with the dollar. If we were considering the euro dollar, let's see what the drivers are and what are the flows for dollar sentiment right now. And in order to do that, we literally click on our euro. That takes us back, that toggles us back to our complete array, and immediately you can see up the top there the dollar yen is right at the top on the time frame. So clearly there's a lot of dollar positive sentiment right now. If we click on the dollar, that will then toggle us through to show us what's going on there. And here you can see, I'll just move that down a little bit. Here we can see on the matrix very, very heavily dollar positive sentiment. The dollar yen is the most positive of all, right up the top there. Then we have the dollar CAD hopping around a little bit, and the dollar Swiss. So lots of buying on that side. And equally over on the other side, you can see that as indeed the dollar yen is the most positive, the New Zealand dollar is the most heavily negative. But again, obviously reflecting a huge amount of dollar positive sentiment, with the New Zealand dollar and the Aussie dollar being heavily sold. The euro dollar perhaps less so. And this is another aspect of the ladder. Not only will it reveal the currency flows, it will also reveal where those flows are strongest and weakest. And in particular on this time frame, certainly at present, the strongest flows are selling the Aussie and buying the dollar, or in the dollar yen. So in a sense, looking at the euro dollar, for example, as a lot of traders do for lots of good reasons, the euro dollar is actually in the middle of the ladder. It's not the one that is reflecting the strongest sentiment for the US dollar right now. And in some of the future videos, I'll show you how to consider this by looking at the multiple time frames. This is not to say that the euro dollar would not move to one of the extremes at some point, but as of now, as of present, and it's really reflected on the price action, and this is another key aspect. The currency matrix is a freestanding tool in its own right, but it's always used like the currency strength indicator in looking at the chart. And what the euro dollar is telling you here, loud and clear on the 5-minute time frame, is that we're currently in a congestion phase. And if you were to move over to your dollar matrix, for example, a manual matrix where you were looking at the 7 charts of all the majors, then the ones that would be moving the most with strong trends in this time frame would be the New Zealand dollar, the Aussie dollar, and the dollar yen, because they are at the extremes. And we're going to look at extremes in a little more detail in another video. So I hope that introduces some of the concepts. Let's just pop that back to where we were, starting point there. I hope that's given you a flavour of one of the principles of using the currency matrix, and it's this whole idea of the unanimity of currency flows. In other words, is the particular currency for the pair that you're considering taking a position or for further analysis, are the flows in and out of that currency universal? And that's what the currency matrix will show you on the ladder very, very quickly. And this is the other point. You can change time frames very quickly, exactly as you would on any other indicator. We'll just do that now. We'll just click on that window to make it active. There we are. We're looking at the 15. Now we're up to the 30. It's very fast, very easy to do, something you'd find difficult to do on a manual matrix. Let's just pop that back to 5, and we'll talk about multiple time frames in a later video. So there we are. I hope you've enjoyed watching that one, and there are more to come in the series. So thanks very much indeed. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon, and bye for now.